spacecraft has successfully landed in the New Mexico desert. The capsule travelled back to Earth from the International Space Station without its crew. It had developed technical problems, including helium leaks, shortly after its original launch. So NASA decided it would be safer to leave the two astronauts on board the ISS. Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams will return to Earth in February in a SpaceX capsule after they'll have spent 8 months in orbit. NASA says both of them are in good spirits. Well, we heard from NASA a short while ago and they told us more about the mission.
I'm happy to report Starliner did really well today in the undock, the orbit, and landing sequence. We used the NASA docking system for the second time on the mission to undock from the space station. That system performed really well. It's a derivative system will be used for Orion down the road, so it was good to pave the way for Orion as well. The spacecraft executed a nominal breakout sequence, the first time we've used that. To back away from the station, we backed out to about 5 meters and then did a series of about 12 burns using the service module forward jets. And then we opened, after that sequence of maneuvers, we ended up opening at about 22 kilometers per rev away from the space station. All those thrusters did really well through that SEP sequence, no problems at all.
Well, our science editor, Rebecca Morale, has summed up the outcome of the mission.
They did deem it a safe and successful landing. There were a few hitches with the spacecraft on the way down. They had a few issues with some of the thrusters, which were they experienced problems with the thrusters on the way up. That's sort of what caused this whole decision to bring back the spacecraft without anyone in it. But on the whole, I think they're pretty happy with the landing. But it's been interesting. We've just been hearing them saying just now, actually, before I came downstairs, that it's sort of a bit bittersweet, really, because they really wanted this spacecraft to be bringing home Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, their astronauts, and it hasn't. It's come back empty, and they've been working on it for sort of many years. So they're glad it's come back. They're glad it's sort of back safe and sound and in one piece. But it was a test flight, and it was supposed to be the first test flight with astronauts, and it hasn't. It's completed its test flights, but just not the with astronauts bit of that.
Indeed. Now, we were talking earlier, I was speaking to a former NASA astronaut, and a question that many of our viewers would have is, how will Butch and Suni be in the International Space Centre, because they're staying far longer than they had planned? What contingencies are in place? NASA says they're in good spirits, of course, but in terms of kit and what they need, what will they have up there?
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be an 8-day mission, and seeing as they're now coming back next February, it's going to be 8 months. I mean, that is a really long extension to your stay in space. But, from all the images we've seen and from what NASA says, they seem to be pretty happy up there. I mean, in terms of their gear, when they went for 8 days, they didn't bring that much stuff with them. But we do know that NASA has sent up several cargo missions with specific crew items, they're called. But I think that means things like clothing, underwear, stuff like that, all the stuff you need for that extended stay. And they're also having, now it's a longer duration mission, they're having to do things like the daily exercise regime, so you don't lose sort of bone density and muscle weakness in that weightless environment. They're taking part in the science experiments up there because, of course, this is a floating, it's an orbiting laboratory, so loads of science going on there all the time. So really, they're settling in, I guess, which they have to, because, their lift ride has gone home now. They've got to wait for quite a while for the next one to come by.